I don't know if they've gotten to no packaging. I've seen there were some companies, because I back in the early 90s, I put together a packaging task force and a packaging goal, and we saved $35 million driving packaging reduction with the help of some folks from the Michigan State, which is the packaging engineering capital of the world. They got a tremendous packaging program there. But there were some companies that were like taking garments in and just on the hangers instead of having them all packaged up. I don't remember who it was doing that, but you know, there's absolutely agree that packaging is still out of control here.
Yeah.
And I think
I would just think that would be just a great to get to people's sustainability emotions, that if you could create limited product line, and your whole sales pitch was no packaging products, and no is probably too strong of a word, but you know, minimal packaging, because now I feel like people are using packaging to sell products.
Well,
I'm thinking that's just
Amy, there was a potato chip company that developed packaging that was biodegradable.
Yep.
But the customers rejected it because it was so noisy when they put their hand in. And the customers would not buy the potato chips because the packaging was too noisy. So some of sustainability is getting to the customers too, and having them understand.
Right.
And which is an interesting point, because when I was at Baxter, we would sell to the Japanese. They still sell to the Japanese, and the Japanese. I don't know if you know about Japanese culture, but yeah, I don't know if you've seen their Christmas wrapping, but you know, it's all meticulous and you know, wrapper after wrapper, you know, rubbing after piled on. And so what they wanted, if there was just a slight blemish in a white, and they wanted all the cartons perfectly white, Bristol, you know, clean, and if there was just a slight smudge, they would toss it away. Well, so now we thought, well, you know, what we'd like to do is use recycled paper in our some of our corrugated packages, because you know, the product was inside, it was sterile, but you didn't need to worry about it, or maybe even for gloves or things like that. And at first they said, "Oh, we can't do that because this is it's not pristine white. It's sort of brown. It has little flecks in it." And so at first they were put off by it. Said, "Oh, this is just not going to do." And then we said, "No, but this is what this is about. This is recycled. This is an environmental. This is a green thing, and this is a sign. If you see one like this, it's a sign that you are getting the green thing, and we're not spending all this money on chlorine and bleaching and all that." And after a while, they went, "Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do more of that." So then it just changed their aesthetic. What is good, you know?
Yeah, so it's just awareness.
So what is good changed, and that's the important thing to do when you're dealing with customers around a lot of these issues.
So there's also some interesting innovation in packaging right now. There's one laptop that's sold not what's in the box, but what's in the bags. They can actually carry it. It's actually fairly decent. So you go home with a bag and there's nothing to throw away.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of moving companies are doing plastic, so there's no boxes to throw away. We have a staple that has a little hang tag, so there's no packaging.
Good.
And there's lots to be done in terms of opportunities in the distribution. You know, shrink wrapping, palleting. There's lots of things that you can do to take a lot of that stuff away. But one of the challenges, if you do have a packaging program, is to put goals in place that take into account in-transit damage. Because you can reduce packaging until you get to the point that now you start seeing increases in damage of the product. So you need to make sure that's part of the picture.
Well, I was thinking like a Trader Joe's, because so much of the packaging is in the food industry, that if a company could invent their own line and do private labeling, and their whole motive or sales pitch is minimal to no packaging.
And the challenge is always, there's three challenges. One is efficiency. You know, there's too much. You're going to have to spend a lot of labor to make all this happen. The other is protection of the product. And the other is, whether it's sanitary, because some products need to be sanitary. So you've got these other, and then damage to the product. So you've got all of those considerations to factor in, and then cost ultimately, and appearance still.
Yeah, what's that?
So those things all have to be in there. But there are great opportunities, particularly if you press an organization with a goal or something. Say, look, don't just dismiss this, but really sit down and look for solutions. Often what you'll find is opportunity. $35 million, some people in our organization said, well, we were always looking for cost savings. We would have found that anyway. So I went back to all the people that did the designs, and I said, how many of you would have just done this in the normal course of business? And in fact, maybe a third or a half of those would have been done in the normal course of business. But the other half, $17 million worth of savings, were achieved because we really focused and made people accountable for achieving the goal. So they really couldn't just dismiss things. They had to really sit down and try to sort it out and figure it out, and found some terrific solutions.
There's an interesting anecdote. Everybody knows Staples. Well, at their headquarters, the CEO makes every single piece of office supply that comes into that office, all the packaging that's left over gets put into a room, and every Friday goes in and takes a look at the horrendous mess. Just as a way to get a feel for how much packaging.
Yeah, it's a great idea. That little dumpster diving sometimes helps too. So let's kind of get down to the fundamentals of this stuff. We've talked a lot about how to do sustainability, kind of got the cart before the horse. Let's talk a little bit about what it is and why it's important that we even ask this question. Maybe I'll have Andre talk a little more about that. He said, we have to have some understanding of why is that important?
To have understanding?
Yeah, of what it is.
Because if you don't know what it is, you don't really know what direction ultimately your company may go. You're going to have people going this way, that way, up, down.
And what happens if that happens?
Chaos.
Chaos, yes, chaos. And what happens as a result of chaos?
Company values.
Yeah, inefficiency, cost wasted, people pulling in opposite directions, absolutely right. So it is important that we actually visit this question. And all too often, it's very apparent to all of us that, yeah, that's right. But all too often, I would say, majority of organizations don't do this. They just say, well, I've heard this term left around, and we'll just do this project and that project, and they never really step back to say, wait a minute, what is the big picture on this? What does this really mean? And then, what should we do about it? And again, vision and policy, very critical. So to look at this concept of sustainability, I don't think that you just come out and say, well, here's the definition, because that doesn't help you. What you're trying to figure out is, what should I do in my organization? I want to take this concept, and I want to understand, all right, now I know what my objectives are. Now I know what my commitments are. I know what my obligations are. I'll try to figure out how to do those, or which ones I should do now. So it's not just enough to have these broad definitions. And I like to take it through different layers. I like to start with sort of an intuitive level. And for that, I draw on this experience I had in the early 90s when NAFTA was being debated. North America Free Trade Agreement, a lot of still debate about that. Mm-hmm. But it was being negotiated back in the early 90s, and I was involved in some of that. And what was happening then is you would have companies coming in and say, oh yeah, we would like to see NAFTA come through, and here's all the benefits that we would have and so forth. And at the same time, you begin to see these social and religious groups and these communities along the border coming forward. And they were not going to take this sitting down. They were going to so they started saying, look, to companies like mine, they said, look, Bill, if Baxter comes in, this treaty is adopted, and Baxter starts increasing its operations along the borderline, comes into our community. Tell me, what kind of wages are you going to pay? And they'd say, we've got these problems with our wastewater systems. I mean, we've got sewage running right down the main street in a gutter. Are you just going to come into our community and add more waste to our environment, or are you going to try to help us with infrastructure to put in place proper sewage treatment? And our water supply, same kind of problem. We don't have a reliable water supply, a lot of contamination. Are you just going to drain our water supply? Going to tap our water supply and diminish what we can use as a community, or are you going to help us create good, sustainable water supply system?